Hey everybody, welcome back to class. We are now officially about the halfway point of our class, and you have all accomplished the first major task of the class, which is the case study project. And again, I commend you guys on the work that you have done on these so far. And I'll be taking a look at the projects, at the executive summaries, and giving you some feedback on those and giving you your final grade. So hang on for that. That'll come later this week. At this point, we're going to engage a whole new topic, and we're going to shift gears and begin to move towards the second major project in this class. So in terms of the format, we will do a similar format. We will look at a particular leadership topic each week, moving along with the topics in our Studying Leadership textbook. But instead of working on the case project week by week, now we're going to start working on the literature review project week by week. So the next 6 weeks, we will go through each of the 6 steps in our literature review textbook that'll help you begin to develop the thinking and the framework for this. And then the last several weeks, we'll continue to refine those. We probably won't be doing as much work online at that point. You'll be working independently on your literature review. So what we'll do for the next 6 weeks, again, is go through those steps, and you can begin thinking out loud, so to speak, about the different steps of the process that you're engaging in developing your lit review. All right? Now, let me just say a word about the topic of the leadership proper topic this week. We're going to be looking at culture and leadership. And I know we introduced this in our contemporary approaches to leadership class, way back at the beginning. But now you're going to re-engage it, maybe with a little more informed thinking. I believe this textbook kind of presses in a little bit more, again, takes a bit more of a critical perspective, looks at some of the latest research, and hopefully will be a good kind of up-to-date and reinforcer of some of those ideas about culture and leadership. And again, in the world that we live in, it's such an interconnected world. We don't have the luxury of working in a homogeneous culture, and many of us are or will be working in very cross-cultural sort of circumstances, either here, where you have many people working with you and for you, or you may be working abroad with lots of different people. And so understanding how to lead in a cross-cultural context and how culture impacts our leadership is really a 21st century leadership competency for sure. In terms of the assignment I'm going to have you do each week for that, it's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to engage so much in the exercise questions. What I want to do is I'm going to start having you engage some of the newer literature on the particular topic. So this week, for example, I have a link there to some of the journal articles from Sage Publications on the particular topic. And the reason why I'm doing this is because as you're starting to do your lit review, I want you to become familiar with and comfortable with reading journal articles, because your lit review is really about finding quality journal articles in order to build your review out of. So as you're looking at these journal articles, I want you to not just look at the substance of the journal article itself, but I want you to start to kind of look at the form and how are they developing their argument, and particularly how are they using the literature? How do they review the literature and find the gaps in the literature in order to build the basis for their own argument and their own research, which is essentially what a literature review does. So I've kind of got a method to my madness here. So you'll be digging into the topic itself, but you'll also be looking at how researchers look at a topic and how they study a topic and how they build new knowledge, all right? So that's sort of the purpose of that exercise. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the literature review itself. Now, a literature review is really a foundational building block for all research. And, because we come up with a good idea, that doesn't mean that nobody has ever thought of that idea before. In fact, there's probably been some good research in very similar areas to what we're interested in. And so what a literature review does is it helps you explore what has already been researched and written about any particular topic. So you're reviewing the literature. That's exactly what it is. So sometimes it's called a lit review. So a lit review really is a way for you to build an intellectual and theoretical foundation for your own research. And this is how knowledge is built in the social sciences and all disciplines for that matter, approaches, is you look at what's already been written. And you can always tell a neophyte, researcher or a sophomoric researcher when they state a supposition, they begin to move in a particular area without having considered what's already written. Because if you think about it, if you really know about a field and you're reading something and you're thinking, well, this guy didn't even consider this, or he hasn't read this argument, doesn't understand this argument, he really does not have an expert grasp of the field. And so that's what distinguishes the experts from the non-experts, as they understand the field. So we can't know everything about everything, but by doing a good literature review on a particular topic, we'll show that we have expertise in that particular area. And so that's why we're doing a literature review. So it's a graduate level and even a doctoral level approach to research that you guys at this point really are going to begin engaging in. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, this is, I'm treating this sort of as a pre-doctoral level class. This is the culminating academic experience of your master's here, and it really is preparing you if and should you go on to do doctoral level work. It's sort of bridging that gap between the master's and the doctoral level. So it's not more advanced than a master's level should be. We're not, pushing you into the doctoral world, but we're helping you learn a skill that will have fluency and it will work for you if you ever move in that direction. And it's a good master's level, graduate level research competency for you to learn at this point in and of itself. All right, so what you're going to be doing this week is you're going to break the ice, so to speak, in what a literature review is. So you're going to read the preface of this book, and you're going to read chapter 1 of this book. Now, they have what they call a 6-step method, and I like their approach because it helps you sort of frame out all the steps you need to take. Now, there's different approaches to a literature review. I could have a different textbook, or you could do some research online, and perhaps you'll find 5 steps or 10 steps or whatever. But I like this approach, 6 steps, 6 is a good number, it's the days of creation and all that. All right, so we won't get too biblical about that, but it's a good approach. And like I said, each week from now on, we're going to take one of those steps and you're going to read that chapter and you're going to engage in some exercises to help you explore that. Now, step number 1, as you might imagine, is finding an area you're interested in. The first thing you have to do is you have to say, well, what do I want to research? What do I want to do my literature review on? So we're moving kind of fast here. So by the end of this week, by the end of our discussion, you really should have identified an issue, at least a preliminary issue. And you might be saying, well, I might change my mind next week. That's fine. You can change your mind next week. But I want you to start engaging in the process for doing it. So if you change your mind next week, you're going to have to kind of go back and go through this process again. So again, hopefully by now the wheels are already spinning. You already have some interest. You already know a little bit about the field. And you can find an area to think that what you really want to do some in-depth research on. Now, if you're still unclear, what I would suggest is kind of double back in our textbook and maybe even skip ahead and look through some of the topics, look at the table of contents and review some of the ideas that are coming up. And you might say, boy, I really want to focus in on this particular area. And what you want to do is you want to find an area of interest that intersects both your personal interest and something that we can find in the field of leadership and where there still needs to be some research. Now, you might not know all those things. You're probably pretty good on the first one, like, well, this is my area of interest. I find this interesting. The second one is in the field of leadership studies. That kind of helps frame the general area. So we're not just doing any area, any topic in the world. There's a million things you could research, but the focus of this class is leadership studies. So that's where I want you to focus this particular paper. And then the last area is, where is there a gap in the literature? Now, you might not know that immediately. In fact, you probably won't. But once you start to frame out your questions, you'll research the literature, and what you're going to find is, oh, somebody already answered that question. I don't need to write a literature review on it, right? So early on, the next step, things we're going to start doing next week, is start to look at the literature and see what's already out there. So, but for this one, I'm getting ahead of myself. For this week, all you need to do is think about a topic, and there's several questions to go along with that. Not just what's the topic, but why am I interested in it, and what particular biases and assumptions and values do I bring that's going to hinder me from being totally objective about this. Now, part of your goal here as a researcher is to be objective. So you can't eliminate your values and biases and all sorts of things, but you need to bracket them, and you need to make them explicit, and you have to be conscious of them as you're looking at things. In other words, because if you don't, stumbling over my words here, then you might come up with false conclusions. You might exclude certain areas of the literature, and you won't be as objective as you could be. So part of the goal here is objectivity as a researcher, all right? So I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, this might seem like a daunting task to you, but we're going to break it down, right? Sort of like the old axiom, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you write a literature review? One step at a time, okay? So don't be overwhelmed. We still have a good amount of time in this class for you to kind of begin to chip away. So the first step is just to simply identify a topic, and again, it can change, but I want you to do some real serious thinking about what's interesting to you that you might actually want to do your research on, all right? So that's it for now. God bless you guys. Look forward to working on this with you, and I will see you online.